Dr. David Anders. His topic, "The child of those tears shall never perish." The spiritual heritage of the Confraternity of Christian Mothers. Our speaker is David Anders, PhD. David graduated from a Protestant seminary and achieved a PhD in historical theology from the University of Iowa. He became a Roman Catholic in 2003 and is a Catholic apologist, catechist, and writer. He's also married to Jill Anders, and they have 5 awesome children. You can hear David on EWTN on the radio program called Open Line. It's on Thursday afternoons at 2 o'clock, and from 2 to 3, that is local Central Time. And it's also on the internet. Open Line, on Open Line, David addresses questions from non-Catholic listeners. And he's very articulate. He's been on television many times. Would you please give him a warm welcome, Dr. David Anders.
All right, thank you very much. Pope Pius IX said that Christian mothers could save the world. And of course, the Catholic faith teaches that the salvation of the world comes through a mother. And, oh yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. All right. Pope Pius IX said that if Christian mothers could save the world, and of course Catholic faith teaches that the salvation of the world does in fact come through a mother. Adrienne asked me to come speak on the origin and history and spiritual heritage of the Confraternity of Christian Mothers. And as I reflected on it and I studied the history and I thought about it in context, I realized that there is a sense in which the spiritual heritage, and I say that rather than just the straightforward history, the spiritual heritage of the Confraternity of Christian Mothers, specifically in 19th century France where it was founded, gave something to the world that at first glance you wouldn't grasp just how significant it was, but it has produced some of the most astonishing spiritual fruit in the history of the Catholic faith, believe it or not. Believe it or not. And I'm going to make that case for you over the course of the evening. And the talk, of course, the title of the talk is a saying from an unknown North African bishop to St. Monica, of course. St. Monica was imploring this bishop and God for the salvation of her wayward son Augustine. And the bishop said, hey, the son of these tears will by no means perish. And how little did he know how prophetic his words were, because, of course, St. Monica gave us St. Augustine, whose thought and spirituality and piety literally defined the course of Christian civilization for 1,000 years and still informs Catholic thought tremendously to this day. The prayers of one Catholic woman redounded for 2,000 years to the incredible benefit of the entirety of the human race through the thought and life of her son. And this is the heritage of the Confraternity of Christian Mothers. Now, the reason Adrienne asked me to give this talk tonight is because in her mind, and as Father Booth mentioned, and I agree, the foundation of the society in 1850 in France was in a context not dissimilar to what we face today. Now, there are obviously some major differences between French cultural history and the 19th century and American history today, different cultures, different times, but there are some profound similarities. And we're going to draw some of those comparisons and see what fruit we can derive from that. So why was the Confraternity of Christian Mothers founded? It was founded at a time of great cultural crisis in France, in the midst of a great culture war between the Catholic Church and Christians who envisioned a Christian view of society and in conflict with a secular view of society, a view that wanted to exclude the church from public life, as we are witnessing today in the United States. It began roughly in the French Revolution of 1789, and it really terminated the conflict, the culture war, in 1905 when France instituted state-sponsored, state-mandated secularism. And it was different from the secularism of the founding of our Constitution that said secular state means the government is going to stay out of the affairs of the church. In France, it meant the church is going to stay out of the affairs of the state and public life, and led to the expulsion of religious orders and the complete expulsion of Catholicism from the public school system and this kind of thing. So, and today, of course, France is one of the most secular countries in the world. And even though you could say, well, the goals of the Christian Mothers were not achieved, they didn't win the re-Christianization of France for which they aimed. They won something, in some respects, more astonishing that I'm going to come to. All right, now this cultural battle was one in which women were extraordinarily important, much more, in fact, I would think, than even the role of women in American Catholicism, for the simple fact that women were the bulwark of Catholic faith in 19th century France. Men left the faith at much larger numbers, much greater numbers in France, unfortunately, than they're doing in America today. And it was really up to the women to keep the faith alive and to transmit the heritage of Catholic faith and life to their children in the attempt to save Catholicism in France. This is something that a number of historians have treated. And interestingly, in my research, I came across one social historian who looked precisely at the cultural and social lives of the middle-class women of 19th century Lille, where the Confraternity was founded, who had access to the archival documents of the very first founding Christian mothers in the Arch Confraternity. And her assessment as to what was in the mind of these women when they founded the Confraternity, the impetus behind the formation of the Arch Confraternity of Christian Mothers, it offered women the occasion to pray for their sons, husbands, fathers, or other male relatives who had turned from the church to the side of its enemies. So in their own mind, the foundation of the Confraternity was very much a broadside against the secularization of the culture and the very real ripping apart of the fabric of their own family life as their husbands and sons were taken from them by the culture. The book, if you're interested, is Ladies of the Leisure Class, the Bourgeoisies of Northern France in the 19th Century. Although I don't recommend, her point of view is not sympathetic to the church, but she does document what went on. Now, how bad was this reality of husband versus wife, mother against son? You see here Voltaire's famous statement, "Écrasons la femme," crush the infamous one, meaning the church, depicted as a woman. We are all anti-clericals. Edouard Crépy, 1883, was a councilman in Lille, and the husband of a prominent member of the Confraternity of Christian Mothers. And he was one of the characters leading the charge for the secularization of the public school system and public life in Lille. And he declared of his colleagues and himself, we are all anti-clerical, meaning we're against the church, we're against what she stands for. So this is who the Confraternity is married to, all right? Now, y'all recognize Vincent Price here. Now, you remember the Song of Bernadette? And if you remember the movie, the way they depict the civil life in Lille is there's a mayor and there's a lawyer and a police force that are all sort of on the side, quote unquote, of progress and secularization and scientific thought and all this, and they despise fanaticism and religion, and they're completely against Bernadette and everything that she's doing. That's actually not an inaccurate picture of the way civil life was like in the urban and even small towns of France across this period. And of course, Bernadette's visions took place right at the same time, more or less, of the foundation of the Confraternity. 1854, I think, was the proclamation of the dogma of the Immaculate Conception, and Bernadette's visions began in 1858. So it's around the same time. Once again from Lille, here is the mayor of Lille saying, we respect piety, we respect all cults, but we're combating fanaticism in whatever form it presents itself. It should not be that an exclusive doctrine seizes the spirit of a woman and establishes between her and men an insuperable barrier. The mayor of Lille in 1877. So you see how in the mind of the civil authorities, the Catholic Church, he identifies it with the woman. And there is a specific attack on the role of woman in the preservation of the Catholic faith in the family. This is the context in which the Confraternity of Christian Mothers was founded. All right. Once again, men are from Athens, women Jerusalem. I found a work by an early member of the Confraternity of Christian Mothers, a woman by the name of Marie Jantel, and she writes a treatise. Interestingly enough, it was a treatise on Christian modesty. It's an exhortation to Christian modesty. But I read it because it was by a confraternity member, and I found one passage that stuck out at me on this particular theme. She says, but perhaps you will reply, my husband does not want me. He lives in his way.